There's a kind of silence that doesn't just fill a room, it crushes it. The kind that wraps around your chest and makes breathing feel like a mistake. That's the silence I heard when I stepped into the banquet hall. My son's wedding. A day I'd dreamed of since the moment I held him in my arms. Tiny and pink and full of promise. My name is Eleanor Grant, and I raised my son Michael alone after his father passed. I worked 2 jobs, sewed dresses late into the night, and saved every spare dollar so he'd never feel poor. Every birthday, every graduation, every moment of pride. I stood in the front row, smiling through exhaustion, believing love would always bring us together. But that day, love felt like a stranger. The hall was draped in gold and white, crystal chandeliers glittering above rows of tables set for guests. Laughter, champagne, expensive perfume. It should have been joy. Instead, when I approached the seating chart, my name was missing. I scanned it twice, then 3 times, thinking it must be a mistake. That's when Samantha, the bride, appeared beside me. Perfect hair, perfect smile, perfect chill in her voice. "Oh, Mrs. Grant," she said sweetly. "Your seat's not on the chart because we had to make some last-minute adjustments. You'll be in the kitchen. It's quieter there." The kitchen. At first I thought she was joking. "I'm sorry," I said softly. "You must mean near the kitchen." She tilted her head. "No, in the kitchen. It's better for the staff, and you'll have a private space to relax. You understand, right?" Behind her, Michael approached. My son, my pride. "Sam," he said gently. "Maybe—" She cut him off with a glance sharper than broken glass. "We agreed, didn't we? It's for the best. It's less awkward." Less awkward. My chest tightened. Awkward for who? She smiled again, the kind that hides a dagger behind dimples. You know how families can be. Different backgrounds, different expectations. I looked at Michael, searching his face for rescue, but he just stood there, silent, guilty, small. "Mom," he murmured, "it's only for the dinner. You'll join us after." Something inside me cracked, but not loudly, like old porcelain splitting in the dark. I could have made a scene. I could have shouted, cried, demanded my place beside my only child on the most important day of his life. But pride is quieter than pain, so I smiled. "Of course," I said softly. "The kitchen sounds perfect." And I walked away before they could see the storm rising behind my eyes. The kitchen was warm, filled with the scent of roasted lamb and rosemary, laughter from waiters who didn't know they were witnessing a humiliation dressed as hospitality. They offered me a chair near the prep table, a plate before the rest were served. "You must be family," one said kindly, setting down a glass of water. I nodded. Something like that. From behind the door I could hear music swell, the first dance, the speeches, the applause. Every cheer pierced like a needle. I pictured Michael laughing, cutting cake, posing for photos I'd never appear in. But pain, if held long enough, turns to purpose. And purpose, once lit, burns steady. As the night wore on, I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. There, in my messages, were months of unanswered texts to Samantha. Notes about flower arrangements, caterer payments, the dress fitting I'd funded when her parents claimed budget issues. I'd paid for half this wedding, quietly, gladly, believing kindness was enough. Now, in that kitchen, with the hum of refrigerators and the sting of betrayal, I realized something vital. Kindness, when given to the cruel, becomes currency they spend against you. By midnight, when the last toast ended and guests began to leave, I had made my choice. I stood, smoothed my dress, and walked out through the back door, unnoticed, just as they wanted. But the next morning, when Samantha and Michael arrived at the honeymoon suite expecting champagne and roses, they found a very different welcome. The hotel manager handed them a letter. "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Grant, Congratulations on your marriage. As per the revised agreement, all reservations and services under my name have been canceled. I trust you'll enjoy planning your new journey together, starting from zero. Warmly, Eleanor. Because here's what Samantha forgot. Every vendor, every deposit, every signature on those contracts belonged to me. The venue, the florist, the photographer, even the honeymoon package in Paris. I had signed, paid, and managed it all. She wanted me in the kitchen. Fine. But she'd built her castle on my foundation, and I was ready to pull every stone. While they scrambled, I made more calls. Polite, measured, firm. Refunds where possible, cancellations where not. The florist, sympathetic, agreed to rescind the balance. The photographer, appalled by my story, deleted the gallery at my request. The travel agent? No problem, Mrs. Grant. The honeymoon is now void. Full credit issued to your account. By noon, the perfect wedding Samantha had orchestrated, or thought she had, began to unravel. Meanwhile, I sat on my porch sipping tea, watching the morning sun climb. I wasn't gloating. Revenge isn't about laughter. It's about clarity. And I was seeing things clearly for the first time. Around 3, Michael called. Mom, what did you do? I sipped again. I don't know what you mean, darling. Samantha's furious. The hotel says the reservation's canceled. The photos are gone. Half the vendors are pulling out. She's saying you ruined everything. I let the silence hang. Then softly, she ruined everything when she put me in the kitchen. He sighed, a sound heavy with shame. Mom, I didn't want that. I didn't know she... Yes, you did. I interrupted gently. You stood there, Michael. You watched. You chose silence. He tried again. Please, just fix it. For me. I closed my eyes, remembering his first steps, his first scraped knee, the nights I stayed awake stitching his school clothes. You're a married man now, I said. Fix it yourself. Then I hung up. That evening, the doorbell rang. When I opened it, Samantha stood there, hair disheveled, mascara streaked, fury barely contained. You vindictive old woman, she spat. Do you know what you've done? Yes, I said calmly. I gave you exactly what you gave me, a seat you didn't deserve. You humiliated us! I tilted my head. No, dear, you did that all on your own. Michael appeared behind her, face pale. Mom, please. I looked at him, really looked. The boy I'd raised, now a man who'd traded gratitude for convenience. You wanted me quiet. I was quiet. You wanted me small. I was small, but I won't pay for my own erasure. Samantha scoffed. You think anyone's on your side? Everyone saw how pathetic you looked hiding in the kitchen. Perhaps, I said, stepping closer, voice low but unshaken. But they'll also see who funded your fairy tale, and who ended it. She opened her mouth, then closed it, fury trembling on her lips. Without another word, she turned and stormed off, dragging Michael with her. As their car disappeared down the street, I exhaled slowly. My hands still shook, not from regret, but release. That night I pulled out my old sewing machine, the one I'd used to clothe us when money was tight. The rhythm of needle and thread steadied me. With every stitch, I remembered who I was before disappointment wore me down. A woman who built, who mended, who endured. And though I didn't know it yet, that act, that small defiant hum of creation, would start something far greater. Because the next morning, I received a call from Helen, an old friend from church. I saw what happened, she said. What they did to you. I've got a daughter getting married next spring. Would you help me plan it? I'll pay. I laughed softly. I'm not sure I'm qualified. Nonsense, she said. You know how to make a wedding beautiful, and how to spot a snake in lace. By the end of the week, I had 3 more calls. Friends, acquaintances, women who'd seen themselves in my story. That's how it began. Quietly, almost accidentally. What started as revenge became redemption, a business born from boundaries. Grant Events and Design. My name, my terms. As I hung my first business license on the wall, I smiled. Life has a cruel sense of humor sometimes, but it also loves a good twist. I had been sent to the kitchen, and from it, I built a company. Still, part of me wondered, had Michael learned? Or was this just another chapter in a book of lessons he refused to read? I didn't have to wait long to find out. 2 weeks later, he knocked on my door, alone this time. His face was drawn, tired. "Mom, can I come in?" "Of course," I said. He sat at the table, staring at his hands. "She left." I said nothing. "She said I'm weak, that I let you control everything." I studied him quietly. "Did she love you, Michael? Or did she love what she could take from you?" He swallowed. "I don't know anymore." I reached across, resting a hand over his. "Then maybe it's time you learn what love looks like. It isn't silence. It isn't shame. It's standing beside the people who built you." His eyes filled. "I'm sorry, Mom." And for the first time that week, the silence between us didn't hurt. It healed. Still, deep down, I knew this wasn't the end. Because betrayal doesn't vanish with apology. It lingers, testing the strength of forgiveness. And somewhere, behind the glitter of that broken wedding, a shadow still moved. One I hadn't yet named. But I would. And when I did, it wouldn't find me in the kitchen. It would find me at the head of my own table. Now, the real reckoning begins. The days after Michael's visit passed quietly, though quiet doesn't always mean peace. The house felt different. Lighter, maybe, or simply emptier. I'd grown used to noise, the hum of plans and heartbreak mixing in the air. But now, with Samantha gone and my son drifting in remorse, silence felt like soil. Fertile, waiting for something new to grow. Grant Events and Design was blooming faster than I'd imagined. The women who came to me weren't clients. They were sisters in survival. Each carried her own story of dismissal, deceit, or disillusionment. I didn't just plan weddings. I rewrote narratives. No one I worked with would ever be hidden in a kitchen. Not on my watch. Still, life has a way of reminding you that scars, though healed, remain sensitive. One morning, as I arranged flowers for an upcoming ceremony, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something in me, that old intuition mothers never lose, urged me to answer. "Mrs. Grant?" The voice was unfamiliar, smooth, but tinged with unease. "My name's Daniel Brooks. I'm an attorney representing Silverline Investments. I'm calling regarding your son." I frowned. "My son? What about him?" "There appears to be a financial discrepancy connected to his name. A significant sum, tied to a business account, one that lists you as guarantor." I blinked. "That's impossible. I don't co-sign anything for Michael." He hesitated. "Perhaps not knowingly, but I'd advise checking your records. The amount is substantial." The call ended, leaving the air heavy with a familiar dread, that old feeling of betrayal coiling beneath the ribs. I walked to my study, pulled out my files, and began flipping through recent statements. There it was. A withdrawal. $40,000, flagged under Grant Enterprises. Not my business, not my signature. My hand trembled as I picked up the phone again. Michael answered on the third ring, voice weary. "Hey, Mom, what's wrong?" "Did you open an account in my name?" A pause. Too long. "Mom, I can explain." The silence between words said more than any excuse could. "How much?" He exhaled. 40. I was going to pay it back. It's just, things have been hard. The bills, the lease. Michael! My voice cracked like thunder. You forged my name. After everything. After that wedding. After you watched them humiliate me. You... I didn't think it would matter, he snapped. You're doing fine, Mom. You have a business now. Money coming in. It matters because it's mine. Because I earned it. Alone. He went quiet. I'm sorry. Sorry won't erase a signature. Or the debt. That night I sat at my desk staring at the documents. I'd built my life brick by brick, and my son had just loosened one from the foundation. Not to destroy me, but because he still didn't understand the difference between help and harm. I could press charges, make an example. But motherhood, even bruised, doesn't crave blood. It craves growth, so I called Daniel back. Mr. Brooks, I'll repay the sum, but I want the file sealed. And I want a name. Who introduced him to Silverline? He hesitated. I'm not sure that's... Find out, I said, and send me the paperwork. 2 days later, the report arrived. Attached was a name that stopped me cold. Samantha Reynolds. My stomach turned. Of course. It wasn't enough that she'd married into my family for convenience. She'd planted traps on the way out. The next morning, I drove downtown to the Silverline office. Glass walls, gold letters, and a receptionist too polished to flinch at confrontation. I'd like to see Mr. Brooks, I said. She led me to a conference room. Daniel rose, startled. Mrs. Grant. I placed the file on the table. How long has Samantha Reynolds been working with you? He blinked. She's a consultant, acquisitions mostly. Then you should know she encouraged my son to open fraudulent accounts under my name. And if your firm doesn't correct it, I'll make sure the next event I plan is your public exposure. He looked shaken. Mrs. Grant, I had no idea. Now you do, I said. Fix it. By evening, the debt was cleared. The account closed. But victory felt hollow. That night, Michael showed up on my doorstep again, eyes red. I didn't know she was still involved with that company, he said. She told me it was legit, that we could invest, double our money. I just wanted to prove I could handle things without you. I studied him, my boy, older now, yet still reaching for validation where wisdom should be. Michael, strength isn't about standing alone. It's about standing right. You keep looking for shortcuts, but life's worth is measured in work, not pride. He nodded, silent, ashamed. I'll make it right, Mom. I promise. Promises, I said softly, mean nothing without proof. After he left, I sat by the window, city lights reflecting against the glass like fragments of memory. How many times had I forgiven him? How many chances had I given the people who claimed to love me, only to find my name written on their debts? But this time, something shifted. Maybe I couldn't teach Michael with words. Maybe he needed to see what integrity looked like in action. So when Helen's wedding approached, the biggest I'd planned yet, a garden ceremony under blooming willows, I hired Michael to assist. Small tasks, deliveries, logistics, bookkeeping. It wasn't charity, it was a mirror. The first week he showed up late, misfiled invoices, forgot a vendor call. I didn't scold, I documented. The second week, I handed him a binder. This is what excellence costs, I said. You'll learn it or lose it. By the third, he'd changed. Early mornings, careful notes. He started to see the weight behind every promise. The night before the wedding, as we walked through the decorated venue, he stopped beside me. I never realized, he murmured, how much you carry. I smiled faintly. You were too busy being carried. He laughed softly, not bitterly, but with the humility of someone seeing his reflection for the first time. Thank you for letting me try. Don't thank me, I said. Just don't forget. The ceremony was flawless. Helen wept with joy. Her daughter beamed, and guests whispered about the grace of the planner who'd turned pain into artistry. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Michael approached with a tray of champagne, handing flutes to guests with genuine pride. When the last toast faded, he turned to me. "Mom, I think I finally get it. Respect isn't owed, it's earned." I nodded. "Good. Now keep earning." Later that week, an envelope arrived. No return address, just my name written in looping script I recognized instantly. Samantha. Inside, a note. "You may have canceled the wedding, Eleanor, but you can't cancel what's coming. Some people never stay buried. No threats this time, just a promise. Or maybe a warning." I stared at the letter, the scent of her perfume still clinging to the paper. What could she possibly mean? I'd thought her gone, dissolved into gossip and regret. But women like Samantha don't vanish. They plot. That evening, I called Angela. "Do you remember Samantha Reynolds?" Angela groaned. "The one who made you sit in the kitchen? Hard to forget. She's stirring something again. I need eyes, background, accounts, associates." Angela was silent for a moment. "You think she's after Michael again?" "I think she's after whatever she couldn't take before," I said. By the weekend, Angela had news. "You're not going to like this. Samantha's working for Reed & Co. Holdings. They're buying properties across the city. Guess which block they've been targeting?" My pulse quickened. "Grant Street," she sighed, "including your office space." For a moment, I just sat there, the weight of irony pressing like gravity. Samantha, once the bride, now the broker, circling back for the one thing I'd built from ashes. But this time, she'd find a different woman waiting. I poured a glass of water, steadying my breath. "Angela, get me everything. Contracts, shell companies, the works. Already on it." When I hung up, I looked around the office, the framed licenses, the calendar full of bookings, the rows of silk samples and ribbon spools. This wasn't just a business. It was proof that Grace could stand its ground. And if Samantha wanted a war, she'd find me ready. Because forgiveness doesn't mean surrender. It means knowing when to lay down your sword, and when to sharpen it again. That night, as the city hummed outside and moonlight traced patterns across my desk, I whispered to the ghost of my younger self, the woman who'd smiled through humiliation, who'd sat quietly in kitchens she paid for. "We're not guests anymore. We own the house." Still, a part of me trembled. Not from fear, but anticipation. Because battles fought in silence are the most dangerous kind. And somewhere, in the shadowed corners of my story, a reckoning stirred. I folded Samantha's letter neatly, placed it beside my planner, and turned off the light. Tomorrow, I'd begin drawing new boundaries. Not out of bitterness, but out of belief. Belief that every time they tried to seat me in the kitchen, I'd simply build another room. One with my name on the door. And this time, I'd decide who was welcome inside. Morning light spilled across my desk like gold poured through glass. I hadn't slept much. Too many pieces moving across the board. Too many ghosts whispering old warnings. Samantha was circling again, and this time she wasn't after my approval. She was after my foundation. But here's what she didn't know. I'd already rebuilt myself from rubble once, and a woman who's learned to rise can't be buried twice. Angela arrived just after sunrise, holding a folder thick with revelations. "You were right," she said, dropping it onto my desk. "Samantha's using a web of shell companies. Reed & Co. is the face, but the money's coming from overseas investors. Anonymous, of course. She's buying up commercial spaces on Grant Street, including yours." I opened the file. Deeds, payment ledgers, contracts pending, all pointing toward one conclusion. She wanted me out. "She's targeting every business that turned her down after the wedding fiasco," Angela continued. "It's personal, a vendetta dressed as real estate." I leaned back in my chair, letting the weight of it settle. Samantha always played long games, the kind you didn't see coming until your pieces were scattered. But she'd underestimated me before, and it had cost her everything she thought she controlled. "Then we'll give her a game she can't win," I said. Angela grinned. "That's the Eleanor I know." By noon, I'd gathered every document tied to my lease, every receipt, every clause. The property belonged to a holding company, but the owner of record, for now, was a man named Charles Reed, Samantha's latest puppet. So I called him. "Mr. Reed, this is Eleanor Grant. You manage 42 Grant Street?" "Yes," he said cautiously. "What can I do for you?" "I'm calling about the pending sale to Reed & Comber Holdings. I'd like to make a counteroffer." He hesitated. "A counteroffer? Mrs. Grant, the property isn't technically for sale." "Everything's for sale," I replied. "It's just a matter of price and timing." There was a pause, then a sigh. "Meet me tomorrow at 10. And Mrs. Grant, bring your paperwork." The next morning, I arrived early. Charles Reed was younger than I expected. Sharp suit, sharper eyes. He looked like a man who understood leverage. "I did my research," he said. "You've built quite the reputation. Weddings, events, charity foundations. Impressive." "Thank you," I said evenly. "I intend to keep building." He smiled faintly. "Then why sell?" "I'm not selling, I'm buying, and I'm offering 20% above market value. Cash." He blinked. "Cash." I slid a folder across the table. Inside were statements, proof of funds, letters of intent. Immediate transfer. You walk away with a profit, I keep my business, and Samantha finds herself one property short of a power play. He studied the papers, expression unreadable. "You know her?" "I know what she's capable of, and I know she doesn't build. She breaks. I'm not here to destroy. I'm here to preserve." He tapped the folder thoughtfully. "You're a formidable woman, Mrs. Grant." "I've had practice." After a long moment, he nodded. "Deal." The contract was signed within hours. By sunset, the deed was mine. I stood outside the building, my building, as dusk painted the sky in shades of fire. Samantha's plan had been neat, precise, but she'd forgotten the simplest rule of revenge: never corner someone who's learned to fight back. Still, I knew this wasn't over. Women like Samantha don't disappear. They regroup. Sure enough, 3 days later, she showed up. Not with lawyers this time, but alone. Elegant as ever, though the perfection in her posture looked more like armor than confidence. "So," she said, glancing at the new sign on the door, "Grant House Events. You bought it." "I did." She smiled, brittle and thin. "You always did prefer the dramatic gesture. And you always preferred the illusion of control." Her eyes narrowed. "You think this ends it? You think owning one building stops what's coming?" "I don't need to stop what's coming," I said quietly. "I just need to be ready for it." Samantha folded her arms. "You cost me everything, Eleanor. My reputation, my marriage." "You cost yourself," I cut in. "You lied, you schemed, you treated people like props in your little theater. All I did was draw the curtain." She stepped closer, voice low, venom soft as silk. "You humiliated me." "No, Samantha. You did that yourself. I simply refused to pretend you hadn't." For a moment, something flickered behind her eyes. Not anger, but pain. Maybe regret. Maybe recognition. Then it was gone, replaced by that familiar chill. "You can't hold your crown forever," she whispered. "I don't need to. I built the throne." She turned sharply, heels clicking like punctuation on marble, and walked away without another word. When she was gone, I exhaled. Not relief, exactly, but release. Some battles don't need victory parades, they just need closure. That evening I called Michael. "It's done," I told him. "She won't be bothering us anymore." He hesitated, Mom, I've been thinking about everything. The wedding, the loan, the way I treated you. I can't undo it, but I can do better. I want to invest, properly this time, in your business. I smiled softly. You don't owe me that. It's not about owing, he said. It's about honoring. And for the first time in a long while, I believed him. Over the next few months, Grant House flourished. We expanded into corporate galas, fundraisers, charity auctions. I hired single mothers, widows, women rebuilding like I had. Each found purpose in creation, proof that grace could be profitable. Sometimes, late at night, I'd walk through the empty halls, lights dim, air scented with fresh flowers and ambition. I'd think about that wedding, the kitchen seat, the laughter echoing from the hall, the sting of invisibility. And I'd smile, because that moment hadn't broken me. It had introduced me to the woman I was always meant to become. One evening, months later, I received an unexpected letter. Handwritten, familiar looping script, but this time, no perfume. Just ink and humility. Eleanor, I've started over. I'm in another city now, working quietly. No more schemes. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know I understand now. Respect isn't given. It's earned. You were never my enemy. You were my lesson. Samantha. I read it twice, then folded it neatly. No anger, no satisfaction, just peace. Forgiveness, I'd learned, isn't weakness. It's a boundary, drawn in compassion, not concession. I didn't reply. Some stories close better in silence. The next morning, I walked to the studio. Sunlight streaming through the windows, laughter echoing from the new hires setting up for a client meeting. Michael was there, clipboard in hand, organizing schedules like he'd been born for it. Morning, Mom, he said, smiling. Morning, Michael. I watched him for a moment, pride swelling quietly. Not the kind born from perfection, but from perseverance. Angela stepped beside me. You ever think about retiring? She teased. I laughed. And miss all this? Not a chance. She smiled. You've come a long way from the kitchen. Yes, I said, glancing around at the empire we'd built. Now I design the table. Later that evening, I sat in my office, pen in hand, drafting plans for the Grant Foundation for Women in Transition, a new branch of my legacy, focused on helping women rebuild after financial or emotional upheaval. Because strength isn't meant to be hoarded. It's meant to be shared. As the sun dipped below the skyline, painting the city in gold and rose, I whispered a quiet prayer of gratitude. For pain that became purpose, for loss that became lesson, for silence that became song. I thought of that wedding again. The clatter of plates, the muffled music, the lonely chair by the sink, and realized something simple, profound, and true. They hadn't hidden me away. They'd handed me solitude, and solitude is where women like me build kingdoms. So here I am, still smiling, still silent, when silence says more than fury ever could, not because I'm powerless, but because I know the truth. You don't need to burn bridges when you've learned to build your own roads. And mine, at last, leads exactly where I belong. So if you're watching this, and you've ever been seated in the shadows, told to wait your turn, reminded of your place, remember, your place is where you decide to stand. Stand tall, stand proud, and when they tell you the kitchen's all you deserve, smile, stay quiet, and buy the whole building. Thank you for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you've ever turned pain into power, share your story in the comments below. Your voice matters, always.